Okay, so let me explain. Let's kind of start over in that. So in this class, we're going to kind of flip the classroom. Most of your lectures you will be assigned as homework, and the lectures will be found in our e-learning system, and I'll show you that in a second. And also, one of your first assignments will be watching a video I made about our e-learning site, and so that you know how to get into it and how to use it, what to expect from it. And there's on the e-learning site already a short quiz, I think 3 questions that you will have to answer based on the video that you will watch. But I'll show you all that. So consequently, then, the reason why we're in a computer lab is that in class we will go over a lot of stuff about writing. We say a lot of principles of good English writing, professional writing. And if I'm lecturing, I will record it as I said. But what eventually, not probably the first 2 weeks, but by the 3rd week, I will lecture very little in class because I will be lecturing out of class. And you'll be listening to it out of class. And in class, we'll have assignments to work on. It won't just be individual assignments. We will form teams. And so that as you work on an assignment frequently, you'll be able to, I'll say, have you write the first paragraph of a research article. And so you'll each give it a try, and then you can get together as a team and go over what you did and talk to each other. And so there'll be a lot of peer review because we're going to be doing enough things that I can't review everything with you. But at least one item every week I will review for a grade. I won't, and I'll let you know when that's going to happen. And usually, then, at that case, that one you won't get together as a team. You will be doing that one by yourselves, and it'll probably be towards the end of the class. Consequently, we'll be learning things during the class. You'll be getting peer reviewed, and you'll be able to. And we'll, once you peer review, very frequently, for example, while you're peer reviewing, I'll say, okay, you guys get together, and look at the what you wrote, and then come up with a team. A team paragraph. So I might give you a little while to do that. I might give you 20 minutes, review yours, and then somebody sit down and be your scribe, and you go ahead and rewrite it as a team, and then each team will present their version of this paragraph, whatever I've assigned you to do, and we'll talk about the strengths and weaknesses, and maybe vote which is the best one or whatever. And I may, at that point, give you my version, how I would do it. And so this is what we call modeling. How do we, be able to see different versions and understand what's good and what's not so good, why I see it a certain way, and how your peers see it. Ultimately, probably the most important thing is how I see it. But very frequently what you'll find is that when you look at things as peers, you will also be able to see it pretty much, especially after a while, after a couple of weeks, you'll be able to start seeing it as a team like you would expect me to see it. You'll start figuring out what I'm looking for. And so you'll be able to figure that stuff out. And so when you have a team project, so to speak, and like I say, peer review each other's and then write one as a team, you'll have a pretty good product. So that's kind of the how we'll be working it. And in fact, one of your assignments, however, one of your more valuable assignments, there's going to be a lot of assignments worth just a few points. Because first off, as I said, I'll be having you go to this e-learning system and watching videos, and the quizzes may be very short, like this one I just mentioned. You're going to watch this video on how to use the e-learning system. A copy of that video is actually in the L drive so that you can watch it now. You don't have to go to the e-learning system, although it is there also. But because you don't necessarily, some of you don't have your IDs and passwords and have access to the system yet, I want to make sure you can get going. And so I did put a copy of this particular video in week 1 under my name, under all courses. Let me see. I'm going to just flip over there. I think I can. Let me see if I can. Yeah. Okay, so my name is Ken Harvey. Hopefully you know that by now. So under my name on the L drive, hopefully you've become familiar with the L drive. If not, you need to do that too. So the L drive is a, how do I say, it's where all of the professors can put their materials for their classes, but it's not interactive. It's just a repository. So we dump stuff there, but we can't give you a quiz there. Whereas the e-learning system, which is on the internet, is interactive. So we can establish self-grading quizzes there, so you know immediately what you got in your quiz, and so forth. In fact, this first quiz, you can take it twice. So you can take it once, and there's only 3 questions anyway. So you're almost guaranteed full credit for this first one. There's 3 questions, you get to take it twice. So if you don't get 100%, there's something wrong with you. So anyway, so back here, Ken Harvey, and then under my name, there's a subfolder for 2016 fall semester, and under that is the name of our class, and then under that there's some other subfolders, including syllabus and textbooks. And also another subfolder is week 1, and in week 1 you'll find well, let's go there and see exactly what it says. I can't remember myself. There's one at the very bottom here, Moodle Made Easy Video. The software we use for our e-learning system is called Moodle. And it's a free learning management system, so lots of universities use it. The 2 biggest, the 2 most used systems in electronic learning systems are Blackboard, which is very expensive. They came and presented to us and wanted $100,000 a year for us to use their system, or Moodle, which is free. And so it was, for us, a pretty easy choice between the 2 options. Plus, I have actually been using Moodle since soon after it was created, like 15 years ago. So I discovered it 15 years ago and started working. I have my own Moodle websites that I've established for my own nonprofit, non-government organization. And so I'm very familiar with it anyway. And I do happen to be the university's distance learning coordinator for that reason. I've been doing distance learning stuff and distance learning and computer-based education now for about 20 years. So anyway, we have a pretty good system, and you'll get familiar with it. So that's where you find stuff that you don't need I guess you still need to get into a computer. So I guess you still need your ID and password to get into the L drive. But it's a little bit easier than getting into the e-learning system, but not much actually. Okay, going back and going back to the syllabus. Pause this a second, I think. Okay, so again, we call what I'm doing in this class flipping the classroom, where you listen to lectures outside of class and we do activities inside of class. This allows me to help you. I spend more time, so rather than giving you homework and you're all by yourself, isolated, trying to do, fulfill my expectations, and I'm not available to answer your questions, we flip it, and you listen to my lectures outside of class, and in class you do the different assignments, and I'm here to help, and you're here to help each other through peer review. So between you helping each other and me helping you, you should all learn a lot faster, a lot better, and probably get better grades, which is nice for you, but more important than better grades, actually learn something. This isn't a class that I want you to leave and forget everything that you learned. I want my classes to be meaningful, durable, something that will be useful to you in the long term. Otherwise, the truth is there's not much reason for us to be here, right? But I do pride myself in one of my regular department is media and communications. And I was, for many years, a newspaper editor and publisher. Got into magazines some and did some book publishing as well. But in that, I try, because of that professional background, I try to see things very pragmatically, very practically. I don't want to waste your time. I want you to leave here and still be able to remember, like I do, some of the things you learn here. Like I remember some things that I learned 40 years ago when I was in my bachelor's program. I still remember a few things, but not very much. And that's, in a sense, too bad that I went through, however many courses, and I remember maybe 2 of them, parts of a couple of them. It would be nice if courses were meaningful enough to us that they would have impact on us for a long time. I've had other learning experiences that have been more experiential. For example, I went through an immersion program to learn Spanish, and then I lived in Central America for 2 years. That I think about every day. The experience I had of that immersion program and living in Central America, I remember every day. There's something about that will come back to my mind absolutely every day. So that's what I would prefer, is that students think of my classes, maybe not every day, but at least more frequently, and it be of some value to them. And that usually means that you have somehow, it's more of a hands-on experience, like what I had. The immersion program, for example, was only 2 months long. But once we set foot into this immersion facility, it was a live-in facility, we were forbidden from speaking English. And so within 2 weeks, I was dreaming in Spanish. I didn't always know the words, and so sometimes, I mean, it'd be comical. I'd wake up in the morning and kind of laugh at myself because I was making up words in my dreams. But my mind was trying to speak Spanish, even in my sleep, even when I didn't have enough vocabulary. And then, of course, thrown into the situation where I then lived 2 years and had to speak it every day because I was living in Guatemala and El Salvador, and not very many people spoke English. Then that, of course, made it a lifetime experience. And so even though I didn't speak Spanish, very much Spanish, for many years, after I'd left that experience, 30 years later, where I'd really used Spanish very little, I submitted a proposal to the state of Washington to take over a bilingual publication for them. By then I had a lot of experience as a newspaper editor and publisher, and this publication was in newspaper format. And it was supposed to be in English and Spanish, same stories in both languages. And I won the contract, and everybody, raving reviews for my 7 years of work there. I didn't, honestly, I only hired one person part-time, very part-time. And it was a native speaker that I did have do my translation, but I had to do interviews in Spanish, even though I would write in English, and usually she would translate. Sometimes I had to translate, and actually nobody never questioned my translation. But having to interact with people all the time in Spanish and so forth. My point is that was like 30 years after I'd left that experiential learning opportunity. I still had it. It was still embedded. I didn't forget it. I'm sure I forgot some vocabulary, but not enough that I lost my fluency. And obviously that grew, or that was restored as I worked in that situation. So again, I hope this kind of embeds itself as we make this practical, usable, and durable. Okay, so just going through, I'm going to flip through some of this stuff fairly quickly. The learning objectives of this class, to provide the knowledge and communication skills necessary for students to succeed as leaders in their chosen area of this is mass communication. I guess I wrote this when it was aimed just at our students, but although for all of you, I guess it would be mass communication in the sense of if you're writing for a journal, that's still mass communication. It's not a newspaper, but an academic journal is mass communication. And that's really more of our focus here. I may even have to make changes a little bit. And or as scholars and researchers in academic or other spheres, And the second objective, strengthen critical thinking and analytical skills needed to investigate trends and issues. Again, this says journalism and mass communication. I'll change that. I didn't review it again, I guess, closely enough. I've been teaching a form of this class. They keep changing the name and changing the students. At first, I taught it to journalism students. Then I actually taught it to just economics students. They wanted to have us teach them because they didn't have anybody in their department that would teach them, I guess. Didn't want to teach them English, professional English. And then last year, there was actually combined two courses. One was designed for journalism students and one for everybody else in CSS. But it was really one course. So now finally this year they have one course and it's for everybody. So I have to rewrite my syllabus a little bit. So I would say the main focus of this is to help you prepare to write professionally and academically. You all are going to have to do theses as part of your master's coursework, and that's a challenge. One of the things we talked about a lot when I was doing this bilingual newspaper for the state of Washington. Specifically, I was doing it for the migrant bilingual program, and so it was mostly that was to help the local schools better handle the challenge of teaching students who had just arrived from Mexico or Guatemala or El Salvador or someplace like that, and they did not have good English skills yet. But one of the things we talked about a lot in that experience was the difference between day-to-day English and academic English. They're two totally different things. And so even though you may be very fluent in your conversation, doesn't mean you're fluent in your academic writing, because that's something else. And it may be, actually in some cases, it may be the opposite way. I know I'm better in academic Spanish than I am in day-to-day Spanish. I'm fine in a classroom, but you put me in a kitchen sitting around with a bunch of native Mexican speakers or whatever, and I get lost real quickly because that's not my vocabulary. I didn't learn day-to-day kitchen sort of speaking, and so I get lost there. So it could be even flipped the other way around. But nonetheless, academics English is, I presume, will be a little bit more challenging to you than your day-to-day English. And just the requirements, we're going to approach, or the end product should be that you would be, if you had the right research. Of course, you can't do with bad research, but if you had the right research, you could be published in an international journal. There is, as you know, increasing pressure by the Minister of Education for professors, well, first off, for students to be able to do their graduate studies in English, and for professors of all the universities to be able to publish internationally, which when you say publish internationally, it's usually in English. That's the academic language of the world. Not to say there isn't good research done in other languages, but the top journals are typically in English. And so I've also working with outside of KIMEP, working with an organization that is that wants me to do workshops for professors from COSNU and other universities, because they're feeling all this pressure to publish internationally, and in some cases their English skills aren't very good at all, and secondly, they don't quite understand the norms of international publishing. And so it's not just the English we'll be talking about. It's also the expectations of journals. I have been published quite a bit in my field of media and communications. Actually, most professors are not published very often. It's very competitive. There aren't very many journals, and so a study done by the top accrediting organization for journalism schools or journalism programs in America found that at the time they did their survey, the average number of journal articles that a journalism professor had published was less than one. And the number of books they had published, again, was less than one. In many cases, as in our department, many of the professors in journalism and mass communication, for example, don't even have PhDs. because they're being hired for their professional experience, because ours is a little bit different field than most. If you only have your academic background, you're not going to be a very good professor in the field of journalism and mass communication. And the American universities have recognized this in particular. And so about almost half of all the job openings for tenure track assistant professorships are open to people with master's degrees if they have, it depends from school to school, but 5 to 10 years of good professional experience. They'll basically consider that in place of a PhD. Anyway, so I'm just kind of giving you the background. So I have quite a few, especially compared to other journalism professors, a lot of publications. And we're actually going to review some of them, because I did a lot of work early in while I was doing my master's degree. When I did my master's degree, I had already been a professional journalist. And so I had gone out for 2 years. My first job was in a big city, Tampa, Florida, where I became the editor of a large circulation weekly newspaper, 120,000 circulation weekly newspaper. And I was there for a couple of years, and then I bought my own newspaper. So I became the writer, editor, publisher, photographer, darkroom person. It was a small newspaper. I did everything. And I also had to do the advertising. And so I, luckily, I don't know how I succeeded, but I doubled the revenue of the newspaper in the 2 years I was there, and sold it for a nice profit, and took the money. And I had the money, and I thought, okay, what am I going to do with this? How am I going to invest this money? And I decided I'm going to invest the money in me, because I'm young and I can't lose that investment. And so I went and got my master's degree. And after I did my coursework, I immediately became editor and then publisher of a group of suburban newspapers. So I kind of balanced, but while I was also there working on my master's degree, I was there 1 year doing my coursework, and then I was actually, because I had immediately become an editor and publisher again, I took another 2 years basically to finish my thesis. And it was more of a dissertation level, more of a PhD level thesis anyway. It was included 4 national surveys, and it was more than your typical master's thesis. But during that time, because I had a professional background, all the professors at the university wanted me to help them with their research. And I kind of jumped from their research to my own research, and I had like 6 big journal publications within 4 or 5 years because of that. Some I wrote by myself, some even the ones that I did with professors, I basically did, like some cases, the very first one, the professor gave me the idea, I did the surveys, I did the analysis, I did the writing, and he changed about 2 words and we shipped it in. So even the ones where I had the second byline, I did most of the work. But that's still kind of like in this class, it's like doing things with somebody else, getting your confidence up. And then after I'd been published like 4 times, I was doing it on my own, totally. And even though, again, I'd actually done most of the work for the very first one and the second one and the ones that I co-bylined, by the time I got to the 4th one, this was no big deal to me. And so it was pretty easy. Okay. Anyway, so the main learning objective is to get you prepared to write your thesis and other academic type writings, whatever they might be. Okay, let me go over the sort of activities and how you're going to get your grade. First off, I mentioned a lot of the lectures you'll watch on the e-learning system. And I will, after going through the syllabus, go and show you the e-learning system and give you a quick introduction to it, although it's also on the video, so there's no point being too redundant. I already did a video about how to get into the system and how to use it. That Moodle Made Easy video. Okay, so what we found, I've done a little bit of flipping activities in the past, and what I found is even though it's very detrimental to them, students are lazy enough, they do not watch the videos unless I give them some incentive. And so while this is not huge incentive individually, it's only 1 point per quiz. There's going to be 20 quizzes on the e-learning system you'll have to take over the period of the semester, because there's going to be more than 20 videos to watch. Because the videos will typically be short. They won't be typically long videos. I'll try to keep some of them that you will see will be 5 to 10 minutes long. And when I make them myself, I will try to keep them, I might go as far as 12 minutes because I'm covering quite a bit of material. But they're going to be relatively short so that you can keep your attention and don't go to sleep during it. But then you also know that immediately when you're done watching the video, there's a quiz for you to take. They may not be very long quizzes. Just like this first one I told you, there's only 3 questions in the quiz. Probably future quizzes will be more like 5 questions for if it's a 10-minute video, probably be 5 questions. Still not a huge thing. But I just need to make sure that you're listening to the lectures and that you're getting the key concepts out of them, and hopefully more than that, because hopefully they will be meaningful to you as we then come to class and work on a real project together. So there will be 20% of your entire grade will be these little quizzes on the e-learning system. As I mentioned, they're self-grading. I will probably, this first one you get to take twice. I might have another 1 or 2 where I let you take them twice, which almost guarantees that you're going to get 100%. But then after that, I'll probably just I'll only let you take them once. So you'll have to, I just want to get you familiar with the system and the expectations before I limit you to taking it one time. So you can expect that, like I say, for the first couple of quizzes, you're pretty much guaranteed 100% because you'll miss some questions the first time and you'll know the answers, and so, or you'll be able to figure out the answers in most cases and get 100% the second try. The video scripting, that is probably your most difficult assignment. You have 2 of them. What we're doing is we have 2 textbooks in this class. And I'll introduce you to them in a second. What I'm going to have, basically, you only have to, each of you only have to read 2 chapters in the whole semester. Because what you're going to do is you're going to go through your chapter and you're going to become an expert on your chapter. The chapters are very frequently, they're fairly big type and they're double spaced, typically in this particular electronic textbooks that you're going to be using. So these are not printed textbooks. You all have access to them. They're all on the L drive already, and I'll show you to them in a second. So you will go ahead and sign up to do 2 of these chapters. You will read them very carefully, and as you're reading, you can mark what you think is really important. Also, there are questions within these textbooks, and you can they might be like essay sort of questions, and you'll have to kind of rewrite them, a few of them, the ones you think are important, into multiple choice or true false or matching sort of questions, something that the e-learning system can grade. And so you will prepare from that 30 pages or something of chapter. You will whittle that down to 1,800 words, which is, by our calculations of the day, about 5 pages. So you may start with 30 pages. You have to end up with 5 pages because that's going to become my script to do a video for the whole class. So you're going to whittle it down to 1,800 words. You're going to come up with 6 questions. Like I said, there's already questions in the textbook, but you'll have to put them into an objective format. They're usually in the as I said, in the textbook, they're usually open-ended, essay sort of questions. So you have to reword them, which means you also have to know the right answer. So as you're reading, as you're going through the chapter, you're going to have to figure out the right answers to these questions, and then you can rewrite the questions accordingly and make them objective instead of open-ended. And you will create a PowerPoint. You are allowed, by the way, in your preparing the script, the only original writing you have to do in this exercise is maybe transitions. Because since you're knocking 30 pages down to 5 pages, it's going to be a little bit disjointed if you maybe don't write a little bit to make it sound smooth. That's the only original writing you're doing. And I have permission, by the way, from the publisher to do this. They want me to do this multimedia, and I will give them a copy of it for their use. And so, consequently, you also have permission to use their graphics. So in here there are also graphics that you can copy out and put into a PowerPoint. As I'm doing these videos, people are going to be, it's going to be kind of like this. They're going to be, the other members of the class who are listening to this video are going to be seeing a PowerPoint. They're not going to be seeing the script. I'll be reading the script. They'll be seeing the PowerPoint you create. So your PowerPoint has to mesh. In fact, in your script, you might tell me this is slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, so I know when to change slides. So you're going to create a PowerPoint. You can use their graphics. You can also do like bullet items, short bullet items, PowerPoint is designed to do. You don't want a real text-heavy slide very often, unless there really is a complete paragraph you think they need to read. I will read it to them, and they can listen and look at it on the PowerPoint. There may be occasion when you think that something's so important that you put the whole thing there. But typically, in a PowerPoint, the idea is just to put an outline, just a few words on a whole page, no more than like 30 words or something, and that's your typical PowerPoint page. You can break that rule once in a while if you think it's important. And so you will shorten your 30 pages to about 5 pages, build a PowerPoint, create the questions, and you'll do that for 2 chapters during the semester. I will turn those into a video for the rest of the class. So you become an expert on 2 chapters of 2 textbooks, and those are the only 2 chapters you have to actually read. But I want you to do a good job, partly because you'll be graded for it, so you want to do a good job, but also you're telling the rest of the class what's important in this chapter. And so they don't have to read it. So we want to make sure it's good. And that way we cover 2 complete textbooks as we go through this course. Of course, once you listen to the lecture, I may, first off, I may add a few comments of my own regardless. So I may use your 1,800 words, 1,800 words, and I may myself, as I go through your script, add a few of my own thoughts. That'll be up to me to decide what I want to do once you give me your script. So, and I may add a slide or 2 to add my own perspective to it. So, whatever you hand me, that's that's where I start, but I may not stop there. I may add some more stuff and do some more clarifying, or if I think you didn't add enough transition, that it was kind of a rough jump from something you got from page 5 to something you got from page 7, and you just jumped from one paragraph to the next, and there was no transition. It didn't make any sense, and then I may have to do that for you. I don't want to. I want you to do it, and you'll be graded accordingly. So you need to try to make sure that your script makes sense and that those transitions are there, and people understand what you're talking about, both because of the graphics and because of when necessary, you've added whatever transition and other explanations you need to add that in order to clarify the words you're extracting from the chapter. Any questions on that? You kind of understand? And we'll go more into it. And we'll actually kind of go through a chapter maybe together. I'll have maybe even we'll take a break midway through this class, and maybe I'll go copy out the table of contents to these 2 chapters, and if any of you want to sign up today, you can go ahead and sign up for 1 or 2 or both of your chapters, and so you can get started on it. I will probably have this, I will probably give you quite a bit of time. I think this will be one of the first things we work on, partly because I need to get started on the videos. by fairly soon, I want to be preparing these videos for you to watch on our e-learning system. So that means we have to get this done fairly quickly, particularly the first one. We can then wait a couple of weeks before you do the second one. So the first one, we may, I don't know, I'm thinking what's practical. Maybe by the end of week 4, that would be, of course, this is week 1, so that'd be 3 weeks from now. And so it is important that you choose a chapter, at least your first chapter you want to work on and get going on it. And that is, that's one of those assignments that you will probably have to do some out of class. But I will also give you some time in class to work on it so that if you have questions as you're doing it, I'll be here to help you with those transitions and so forth. But you'll probably at least have to read the chapter outside of class before you can here in class start maybe knocking it down and preparing your script. So, so probably once you know your first chapter you're going to do, you would want to read the whole chapter as soon as possible. And then from there, the rest is kind of easy. Once you, well, I wouldn't say easy, but once you've read it once, you have an idea what's in the chapter. You may still, it may take you a couple of read-throughs to pare it down to the 1,800 words, to the 5 pages. And so the first time you may go through and you may highlight electronically, or if you want to print it out and by hand, everything that you think is important. And when you get done, you'll probably, you should remind yourself that I can't, maybe in this first pass through, I should try to get this down to about 1/3 of what's there. So if there's 30 pages, I get it down to 10 pages. And then from there, you can take 10 pages down to 5 pages. But you probably shouldn't try to go straight from 30 to 5. That's not probably practical. But you can, as you're reading through, remind yourself, I need about 1/3 of this. So on any one page, maybe there's some pages where you include the entire page. That means you have to leave out a couple of pages. So you kind of have to remind yourself as you're going through, I kind of need to be thinking, I need 1/3 of this first time through. I need to get down to 10 pages. And so you start highlighting accordingly, and then if you bring it to class at that point, then in class you can be working on bringing it down to 5 pages and putting in transitions, and I can give you some class time to work on that, and I'll be here to help you that way. And then putting together PowerPoint won't be very hard. You have, like I say, you'll be able to use graphics. You can get other graphics too, if you think there's other graphics. And then the slides themselves are graphics. You can do a save as with PowerPoint and save them as TIFF files or JPEG files. And so the slides themselves, the entire slide, even if they're outlines or whatever, they will become graphics in this video. So even without charts or whatever graphics that are in the chapter, you're creating graphics that you create the outline in PowerPoint. So that's fine. Okay, questions on that? Like I say, after the break, I'll go ahead and go copy out the table of contents and print it out and pass it around in case anybody wants to choose a chapter today. You'll be able to do that. Okay, that's your hardest. Those are your 2 hardest assignments, and will require a little bit of time out of class. But then, so I will try to. I am going to add some other videos today. Primarily, well, I'll see. I'll think about it, because I'm adding this, and the people outside of class, that aren't here, I need to make sure that they have something to do. And so maybe this video that I'm making right now is enough. But I did put a few other videos that might be helpful to you in the week 1 folder. I'll decide whether I'm going to have you actually watch any of those. Maybe not. Or maybe next week. Okay, so that's your hardest one. And then your other projects are all in-class projects. Like I say, they might be your final, your graded assignment in this class will probably be like 1 paragraph or 2 paragraphs long. In some cases, I may ask you to bring either some original, if you have original research, you can bring your own. If you're already working on your thesis study, how many people have actually started working on their thesis? Okay, just one of you here? Okay. There's no strict requirement when you take this class. I suspect most of you are maybe just beginning your program. We try to push people in this class as soon as possible because it can help them in the rest of their classes, the rest of their master's classes. But a lot of students don't take it until later on. Maybe they're a little afraid to, or they don't know about it, or they can't fit it in their schedule, or whatever. But ideally, you take it when you're first starting your program. So in her case, she could bring some of her research, some of her literature review. You know, she's probably already started reading journal articles and books and stuff related to her subject. She'll be able to use some of that information. But you will also be able to, if you want to, I can provide in class for the in-class assignments. I will probably always provide some data, some information to do the assignment with. But as you proceed and you decide what you want to do your thesis on, let's say, you may want to start reading journal articles related to your thesis subject, what you think you're going to do, and you bring some of that information here. And then in here, instead of doing what I give you, you can do a paragraph or something based on your literature review, so the data you find in your particular subject. One of the reasons why it's helpful to do it in here is I don't want, I'll be frank with you, last semester, or last time I taught this, it got out of control. There are organizations now that are selling theses and so forth, and they are very hard to detect without a really good plagiarism software. We are thinking about buying it. I think we are buying, well, we were offered one pretty good system free for the first year and then start paying a little bit thereafter. It's not as good as one I recommended, because the one I recommended would, for the whole university, would cost like $20,000 a year. Personally, I think it's worth it because of these new programs floating around. Some of you maybe have been exposed to already. That will do your writing for you, and they're hard to detect because of the new technologies. One of the things, as I mentioned, my area is mass communication, and one of the areas that I do research on is marketing. And they now have programs, for example, that you put in the database all of your marketing communication, all of your, especially for online marketing, you put in all your YouTube posts, even the free post, any what we call native advertising, which is your advertising you pay for, but it's in the timeline of Facebook or other social media, and looks like posts, your own organic post, but it's really paid for, and they put it into a lot of people's timelines, not just your friends' timelines. Anyway, in other advertising, you put it in the computer, and the computer can now redo all this data into new advertising automatically without the humans just look at it when it's done doing its work. I think that's more or less what these plagiarism programs are doing. The pro plagiarism programs are doing. They take writings of good students or professionals or things they find on the internet, and they have a computer change a lot of the words to synonyms, so they're not the same word. Now they're a word that means the same thing, but they're a different word. They reorganize them. They take one paragraph from one paper, another paragraph from another paper. I went through a paper submitted for a class here, and it found strong similarities to 14 other papers. And so that's, I think, what the computer's doing, what the cheating computer's doing. It's getting all these papers from all over the place, and you give it a subject, and it's able to pull stuff from all over the place. And so if you're a professor like me trying to catch it with Google, not going to happen. They've replaced enough words. They've reorganized everything. They, like I said, they've changed words through, for synonyms. made a few other changes in an automated way. And so now you need a really good program to catch them. And they cost money, and KIMEP has been slow to putting up the money. But I think, like I say, there was talk at least of accepting this one offer of free for 1 year and then $5,000 a year thereafter. And it's not as good as the one I prefer. The one I prefer, every time you put a student paper in to check it, it puts it in their database. So they have more than 500 million student papers in their database, plus the whole internet. And so when it checks a paper, it checks the whole internet, it checks 500 million student papers, growing all the time, and it looks for similarities. It does not look for word copy and paste. Although a professor can then click on it and see what the original said, so they can see, is this close enough for me to be concerned about, or is this coincidental that it's similar to this other one? The professors have to decide what percentage of similarity can I accept. One Italian university that I listened to a presentation by them, they kept theirs was, I think, 15%. Their paper could come out of this machine and say it has 15% of similarity. And, of course, it wasn't exact. It was similarity. So that could be done by, especially when you're looking at 500 million student papers and the entire internet, it's pretty easy to find something that's similar to it. So you have to decide where are you at. This paper we checked here, there was about 55 to 60% similarity. That means, yeah, these guys are caught. That's too much. So anyway, the world is getting more sophisticated, and last time I taught this class, I would say half the class bought a paper to work on in this class, and I'm going to very consciously work around that. Not that I don't trust you, but I don't trust you. I don't trust anybody anymore because it was too blatant last time. So like I say, if you come in with some of your own data, for example, basically I want you to come in with notes. I don't want you to just sit there and type exactly what you had already typed, even if it is your original work. I want you to bring in notes, and I want to see you typing a fresh paragraph, a fresh introduction, a fresh whatever, so that I can see how you type it from notes, not from something you've already written. So that way, that even if you did buy a plagiarized paper in this class, you're going to write it new, and I'll be able to see how you write in this class. So we'll get around that problem, and I won't have to think about it. I do want to, one thing we will do is kind of work through the different parts of a research paper. So if you did have your data, by the time that you're done with this class, it could really help you with your thesis writing, because we will take a look, 1 week we'll take a look at the introduction, for example. Although in reality, introduction is not the first thing you write. Why do you think you would not write your introduction first? It makes sense you do, right? But why don't you? Your introduction kind of summarizes what you found. And very frequently, you haven't really put it in your own brain yet. What did I really find here? You haven't put it in your own words. You haven't really, forced your head to analyze your data and come out with your conclusions, your findings, your conclusions. And until you do that, you shouldn't write your introduction. You definitely shouldn't write your abstract. Your abstract should be the very last thing you write. And so even though it's the very first thing that they're going to ask for, it's the last thing you should write, because you need to figure out where you're going before you can kind of summarize it and decide what your hook is. How am I going to get people's attention and convince them this is something worth reading in an academic journal, for example, or to impress the professor or whatever. So those first two areas, and I don't know whether we'll take them. We might still, in this class, work on them at first, but even if we do, recognize that in reality you wouldn't. Reality, abstract, and introduction. If you write, it doesn't hurt to kind of write it, recognizing you're going to change it. It might help you to kind of focus on where you're going, but you have to understand you better plan to go back when you're all done and totally redo your abstract and your introduction, totally, because your head will be someplace totally different when you're done writing your findings and conclusions and stuff, and it'll be in a better place. It'll be where you can do a better job of your introduction and your abstract when you're all done writing everything. So you might try it when you're first starting. Your professors may even ask you to write me an abstract. Well, I don't want you to say, that's stupid. I'm not going to write my abstract because I should write that last. I'm not telling you to do that. They want you to, they're challenging you to kind of think about where you're going. But in truth, once you've gotten there, you will rewrite it. You definitely should rewrite it. So, okay. So the projects are only, every class we will work on several short projects usually, maybe not. In the case of this big project, the script, we may spend the entire class working on the script. And so I would challenge you, maybe in week 3 we will do that. Week 3 we will do nothing but work on your script. And so next week maybe not, because we've got new people coming in and so forth, kind of people. So between now and week 3, you should be selecting and reading your first chapter that you're going to be scripting. And then when you come to class in week 3, be ready to do some, to start really doing some serious work on it. And hopefully by then, like I said, if you've read it through once, you've knocked it down to 10 pages or so already as you were reading. And then in this class, you can try to knock it down during these 2 hours, knock it down to 5 pages, and I can, if you have a question about something, I can take a look at it, and whatever. Okay, so I'm probably going to plan that. Probably week 3, we'll do nothing but work on that. But other classes, we may do some little exercises, maybe 4 or 5 small exercises at the most, probably more like 3 or 4. And that's where I was talking about you would write one paragraph, and then you would get together with your team and review each other's, and as a team come up with one to present to the rest of the class, that sort of thing. So that we might go through 3 or 4 of those exercises, and only one of them will count for a grade. And it's not going to count much. It's going to count 2 points. But it adds up to 24 because it might actually, I don't know, I was thinking, well, the last 2 weeks we're not supposed to be adding grades. We're supposed to end our last assessment by the end of week 13. So that cuts off 2 weeks there. But I'm already giving you well, that's an out of class. So we're not doing an in-class assignment today, so that cuts off another one. So that does get us to 12 weeks. 12 weeks times 2 points. So, yeah, that makes sense. So next week you'll have something in class to work on, and you'll get your 2 points, and the following 11 weeks also, and so 2 points a week for your in-class assignment that you'll be working on. Okay, and then there will be a final exam. I would not have a final exam at all, except that's, again, one of those areas where I need to make sure people are doing their own work and they actually do understand what they're doing. I've also had some of them some part of the final exam will be objective, taken from the videos that you've been watching, and quizzes. Basically, they'll be taken verbatim. I'll probably use exactly the same questions I've used in your quizzes, but of course not all of them. So I'll go through and maybe have 40 or 50 objective questions as part of your final exam, and then a short writing project in class or something. I don't know. When we get closer, I'll decide and let you know. But all the questions will be from, I'm just going to be lazy and take them out of the questions I've already created. So as you do the quizzes every week, be cognizant of that. You may see those questions again. So you think about that. But what I was going to say is that, again, sometimes I found, for example, I was teaching a class where I teach desktop publishing. Desktop publishing is how you create a newspaper or magazine on the computer. You make it look really nice and publishable graphically. And this one semester, I figured in my classes I I didn't need a final exam for that sort of a class. The people were working on projects the whole time. So I thought, why waste time with, I'll have a portfolio. I'll put together all their exercises, and we'll call it a portfolio, and we won't have a final exam. And I happened to have in my class one student who was actually a magazine publisher already. She had her own magazine. And so I wasn't surprised that she was doing excellently in all of her assignments until the final exam. And she couldn't do the final exam at all. And I realized that all of her weekly projects were done by the person she hired to help her with her magazine. So she had somebody on salary to do her homework for her. I kind of made me think, I guess I better have final exams to make sure that people are actually doing their own projects. And in this class, it seems more obvious since you'll be doing with the flipped classroom, or you'll be doing them in class. But I'll probably do the final exam anyway. So it's on the syllabus. Okay, any questions? I'm not going to go much further in this because I don't have a lot of the schedule done yet, because I'm trying to figure out what kind of detail I'm going to be able to provide you right away. And I'm not sure I can, because there's going to be so many small little projects. I don't know what they are yet. So I'm not sure I can do more than, say, in-class projects. And then every week I may be able to go through and come up with a topic, a subject that we're going to be looking at every week. But I'm not even sure about that. I probably can. So maybe I'll take a look at these textbooks, look at their chapter titles, and we'll kind of follow the chapter titles through. Because for one thing, then I'll be creating the videos based on the chapter titles, so I'll try to do exercises based on that too. So I need to go through the chapter titles myself. This first week, I actually put the Moodle Made Easy video into the L drive, so it's sitting there for you to watch. It's also at this YouTube channel, this YouTube address you see there, and it's also on the e-learning this is the address of our e-learning system. I'll bring it up here in just a second. EL-new. Moodle went through a major transition a couple of years ago. KIMEP had started with the old version, and then their 2.0 version that they got to with a total revision, and so they're at like 2.9 now, and it's a much more user-friendly system now than it was when I first started working on it. So anyway, the video's also there. In fact, basically every video that I will put into the e-learning system will also be on YouTube, because what I found in my own experimentation is that uploading a video into Moodle it takes a long time to upload, and it takes a long time for students to actually watch it if it's actually on that system, because our servers here are nowhere close to as powerful as the YouTube servers. And so what I do is I upload any video I want on the learning system to YouTube and use their embed code to put it back into our system. And so YouTube does let me, if I want to hide it from people finding it, even password it. And so in most cases, I at the very least tell YouTube not to make it searchable because it's proprietary. But anyway, but I put it there because when you embed it, it jumps up and starts playing immediately, then like if it was on the YouTube site, if it's embedded. But if it's not, if it's something we've actually put onto our system ourselves, it could take 10 minutes before it starts running. And I don't want to put you through that, waiting 10 minutes for a video to start. So YouTube's much better at it than we are. Okay, well, we are past the halfway point of our class. Let's take 10 minutes. I'm going to go make a copy of the table of contents, and so that I can pass that around so you can choose your chapter if you want. And we'll talk about some other things. In 10 minutes, we'll get back together. So this is a list. Again, it's on the L drive under textbook, syllabus and textbooks. Each of you will choose 2 of these chapters. It doesn't have to be one from one book and one from the other because they don't have the same number of chapters. This first book Writing for Success by Scott McLean has only 15 chapters, and this Handbook for Writers has 22 chapters. So there's a significant difference in number of chapters. I would say I would prefer that you go ahead and try until we run out of chapters in the first book, that you choose one from each book. I would say I'm not going to forbid you from choosing essentially the same chapter in both books, like punctuation is covered in both books. I won't say you can't do that, but first off, I'm not sure it's to your benefit to do that. It might be to my benefit that you do that, because then you can eliminate some of the redundancy. And so if you want to do it, I won't say you can't, but you'll learn more if you take two chapters that are not the same in both books. So it's up to you. There's different theories on what you might want to choose. You'll probably learn more if you don't choose essentially the same chapter in the separate textbook. But like I say, it's actually advantageous to me if you do. So it's up to you what you want to choose. But I would like you to, one reason why I'm saying I want you to choose one from each book is I believe the chapters in the first textbook are longer than the chapters in the second book. I think both books are about pretty close to the same size, and one of them's cut them down into more units. And so for fairness, until we run out of chapters, the long chapters in the first textbook, I would like you to choose one of those and then choose one from the second book. At some point, somebody's going to have to take two chapters from the second book because we'll run out of chapters in the first book. So again, if you can sign your name by one of the a couple of those chapters today in this hard copy, or you can email me. You can take a look at the textbooks and email me during the week. But it's to your benefit to claim a chapter as soon as possible. As I said, it's first come, first serve. So once somebody claims a chapter, it's theirs. And anybody else who asks for it, I'll have to say sorry. Somebody else already has it. So if you want a favorite subject or something that to you is more interesting, or however you want to evaluate it, you should choose soon. But you can do it by email during the week. But again, what I started to say is that since, as I said, by the end of week 4, I want your script of 1,800 words, 1,000 to 1,800 words, depending how many examples you have and so forth. I want that done by the end of week 4, and it's to your advantage to go ahead and start reading your chapter and digesting it, your first chapter, and marking, start marking the portion of the chapter you think should become part of the script. And again, it's verbatim, it's right out of the book. I'm not asking you to do. The only original writing would be transitions, and as I mentioned a second ago, references to examples that the book provides, good examples, bad examples, and a short, you may have to, if the textbook doesn't explain it clearly, then you may have to explain why this one's good and that one's bad. And hopefully it will be clear why that's, to you, why that's the case. So again, this is the some of these are redundant, like the punctuation. Others are kind of, but not necessarily redundant. These also aren't just about, some of these, for example, are not just about academic writing. You see in this one, there's the academic writing and there's professional writing. So we will cover that. So if you're writing as a professional, certainly as a professional journalist, you write quite differently than you do academically. But that said, let me tell you another story. When I first started, I kind of referred to it already, but when I first started my master's degree, I was really scared. I'd been out of university for, by then, close to 5 years, 4 to 5 years. And I figured all these other people a lot of the others would be just going straight from their bachelor's to their master's, and I thought that gave them the advantage because they were used to the university environment and used to taking classes and stuff. And so it kind of scared me how I would compete. And so, anyway, get into the program, and because I had a professional background, this professor almost immediately, within the first 2 months at least, grabbed me and said, "Hey, I have this research project. I want to survey magazine editors and see what they think about graduates from journalism schools." And so, as I explained earlier, I wrote up the survey, what I thought would be appropriate questions, and I sent them off. We got a database. I can't remember where we got the database of magazines. Sent it off to the editors. Got it back. I analyzed it. I wrote it. And in doing so, I was kind of telling myself a negative story, which is, I'm not even sure how competitive I'm going to be against these, kids that are going straight from bachelor's to master's, and this guy wants me to write and compete with PhDs. We're writing this for one of the top journals in the world, and he wants me to write it. And I'm in my second month of my master's program. How am I going to write this article? Well, as I thought about that, luckily I thought about it before. I thought about it while I was doing the survey, because it occurred to me I could only do it one way. I had to write it as much as possible like a journalist would. That's how I knew how to write. I didn't know how to be a PhD. I didn't know how to do that. I'd never been one. So how was I going to compete against all these PhDs competing for this space in this journal? And so one of the things I did was, in the questionnaires, I put in a lot of open-ended questions. I wanted quotes from the professionals to intersperse in this article, because that's what I would do if I were doing it as a journalist. Journalists need quotes. You don't want just bare bones statistics. It makes it for a very boring article if you don't have quotes. And so statistics and quotes together, journalistically, you can make a pretty good article. Without the quotes, you have a very boring article. So I looked at it very much like a journalist when I created the survey, the questionnaire for the survey, and conducted it. So I had all these open-ended, all these quotes from the editors. And I'll share it with you at another time, but we sent it off. And like I say, this professor that I was working with, he changed like 5 words is all in this article I wrote. And so, I was pleased that he liked my writing, but I still thought, I wonder what the chances are of getting published in this top journal. And so, anyway, a couple months later, he gets this letter back from the editor of this journal saying, "This article is written so well, so clearly, and it's so interesting. I'm not only going to put it in the very next edition. I have a whole stack of stuff submitted by professors all over the country. I'm going to go ahead of all of them. I'm going to put it ahead of them and put it in the very next edition of our journal, and I'm going to make it the #1 article in the journal." I was, to say the least, flabbergasted, because I knew I had written this whole thing. I'd conducted this research, and even though the idea was the professor's, I did it. He did almost nothing other than give me the idea. And I thought, that puzzled me for years. I thought about, what does this mean? What does this mean that this kid who has only 2 months worth of master's degree classes can jump ahead of PhDs who have all this experience and all this training and write the #1 article in one of the top journals? What do you think? Any ideas? And what would you think if that happened to you? Just think, oh, I'm good. That's not what I thought, really. I had to analyze it deeper than that. I knew I was a good writer, but because I was a professional, but I didn't know how I didn't think I was a good writer academically. I never had any experience at it, other than, essays for a class or something. What I concluded, and what I still believe to be the case, is that people with a PhD in some ways destroy their writing ability. They forget, and this is particularly a stark contrast if they're in the field of journalism. The whole effort of journalism is to write so clearly and so simply that anybody down at least to an 8th grade level can understand it. You want to write at an 8th grade level, basically. You can write about nuclear physics, but it has to be written at an 8th grade level so that everybody can understand it. Most anybody who would pick up a newspaper can understand it. And that's how I was trained. That's how I wrote my articles. And so, more or less, that's how I wrote this article, more or less. And so I thought about why did he like mine as opposed to these PhDs. And the more I was in academia, the more I thought, you know what? A PhD destroys a journalist's ability to write. They forget to write simply and clearly because they want to be a professor. I'm a professor. And so you want to sound intelligent. You want to sound academically cool. That everybody's going to think you are smart. Well, the problem with trying to act smart is you usually write very complicated sentences, and you use big words instead of short words, and you start trying to show off your ability to sound like your idea of a professor. But in reality, professors prefer to read simple writing because we're all busy. We need to skim articles. We need to read quickly through articles as much as anybody does. That's what everybody does, right? Anything you read, you want to read quickly. You want to understand it without having to reread a paragraph. You want to, not spend a lot of time on it. Everybody's like that, including professors. And so this editor of this journal was like that. And so he liked journalistic writing in an academic journal. So one of the things we're going to cover in this class right away is that principle, is that you don't want to sound stuffy. You don't want to sound smart. You want to sound clear. You want it to be skimmable, memorable, easy to understand, and even the editors of top journals will like it. They will prefer it that way. And so don't fall into the trap, as many PhDs do, of trying to sound intellectual. Because it doesn't work. It's not what people want to read. They want to read easy, clear, clean writing, which is why, as somebody who had only 2 months into a master's program, could write the #1 article of one of the top journals. Because I hadn't been ruined yet. Now I'm ruined. I wasn't ruined yet. So, okay. Okay, I want to, what else do I need to go through? I want to, kind of running out of time. Well, you can go through these chapters yourself and kind of get an idea what they are, what they're like. As I said, in almost every case, in fact, I think in every case, they do give you questions, thought questions they might call them, or they might give key points. I think they may call it something else. But they give you some help in trying to figure out what's really important. And they help you with questions. As I said, if they do an essay question or an open-ended question, you need to turn it into an objective question, multiple choice, true or false, matching, very short answer, like one-word short answer. But those are sometimes hard to write because in creating the question, I have to give every possible answer that would be correct. And so it has to be really something really obvious. And so like I'm not sure. I think not in this class. In another class, I wrote a question referring to the Moodle Made Easy, and I said, give me one word for the program that our e-learning system uses, for example. So in other words, what I wanted was Moodle. There's not too many, by saying one word for the system that our e-learning system uses, if they hopefully they would come up with that one word. But if you start getting more than one word, there's too many variations. And so if you're going to use a fill-in-the-blank sort of answer, make sure there's no other word that can you use. You might well, the system already will accept capitalization and not capitalization, but if there's any way they can screw it up, so it's a little bit tricky to have a fill in the blank. So I prefer probably multiple choice, true, false, and matching. Those three are really easy and can't be screwed up too easily. Let me just very quickly go to the e-learning system. I showed you there is that link already in the syllabus. We'll just go ahead and type it in. It's EL for e-learning, and the rest came in because I've been there before. Hyphen new period KIMEP period KZ. So as long as it's pretty easy to remember if you understand the EL stands for e-learning, and new means, I mentioned before, they've had a dramatic improvement in the Moodle program, and so they actually have the old system still available for professors who created things in the old system, but this is the new system, the new Moodle, and then the rest is the same as getting to our home page. It'll look like that when you go into it. I don't want to stop the video, so I can move the boundaries, but I can't without stopping it. I think this is enough. This is good enough. Anyways, I go to login, and in here, put in my username, which is the same I use for my email, same I use to get into my computer in my office. So type in my username and then my password. And it should bring you to your dashboard. It calls it a dashboard. It should take you to your dashboard, which includes your courses. Now, if you go, you can go. It's off the site here. Let me pause just a second. Okay, over here, it does have navigation and has my courses. And later on, it may have sometimes offer you something called administration, something like that. Under navigation, I can go to the home page of the entire KIMEP system. I can go to site page, and that's the front page of the entire system. It has all the available courses that are on this Moodle system. But it won't take you there automatically, and you don't really want to go there unless you're looking for something that you're not immediately available. So it will, like I say, take you to your dashboard, and it should have your courses on the dashboard. It may have courses with professors that are not going to use the system. Most professors do not use this system. But nonetheless, my course should be there. If you register in my course, it should be there. The registrar's office should have put your name already into the system, so I don't have to do it either. And so if you find it here, this also includes my last semester stuff. So it's for me, it's showing me my last semester stuff too. Where are we? So far, I don't have much there. You see the video that's also on the L drive and also on YouTube, Moodle Made Easy, and it has the quiz. As I mentioned, I will be adding a little bit to this quiz to reflect this video I'm creating right now. You go into the quiz. Right now it only has 3 questions. And I've set it up so you can, like I said, so you can try it twice, and so can I. So once I've done it twice, it won't let me do it again. So like the first question is in the video that what types of questions were demonstrated in the example quizzes. There's several. It goes through several quizzes in this video that I made, and so you just have to remember which one it did not use, which of these types. So you watch the video, you should be able to answer these 3 questions. And like I said, it allows you to take it twice, so if you miss it the first time, you can take it again and get 100%. So it's no big deal. But the quizzes are really easy to. I mean, this is very intuitive. To answer, what are you going to do? Let me see. It says what. Okay, so you can choose more than one. So you can choose whatever you want, and maybe there's only one that wasn't used. So this allows you to choose more than one. I thought I put that in there, but I guess I didn't. Oh yeah, it says choose all. So you choose all of them that were demonstrated, and I'm not going to go ahead and hit next. But if I were doing this myself, I'd hit next, and it would then take me to the next question. You can also see 1, 2, 3 over in the left, so you can also you can jump back and forth. If you aren't sure you gave the right answer, you can go back to question 1 or whatever, and so you can just hit next and go to the next question, or you can hit 2 and go to the next question, or you can skip 2 for some reason and go to 3 if you want to by going up to the upper left. So it's a very intuitive system once you get into it, so you do need your ID and password, but other than that, this is not a tricky system. This is a real easy system to use. So if you have any questions, the most important thing, one of the professors, sociology professor, flipped his classroom last semester. And he got all the way to the first midterm exam, and suddenly students were saying, we don't know how to get into the system. They couldn't do the midterm exam. They were supposed to be listening to lectures and stuff, and they didn't bother to go to the professor and say, we don't know how to do this. Frankly, one of them, my stepson, he probably deserved to flunk. You have to, if you don't understand something, you have to ask. Don't be afraid to ask a professor, whatever class, whoever the professor is. If he's mean, angry, grumpy, you have to be sensible about this. If you don't understand something, you have to ask. Not wait for the first midterm or something and then say, I couldn't do this work because I didn't know how to do it. Well, it's also your responsibility to figure out how to do things, and your first source is the professor. So don't be silly about it. If you can't do it, if there's something wrong, if you can't get in the system, like I said, if you don't have your ID and password, I forget which office you're supposed to go to. You go to the registrar's office and ask them, and they will direct you. They'll tell you where to go. And no big deal. Okay, so that's basic. Well, as far as going, I could hit the return button, but actually it'd be best. These are all hyperlinks here, and so I can go back to. I can leave this if I want to, and this takes me back to where I started from. Well, not exactly. It took me back to this particular lesson. If I'd hit my name, it would have taken me out to where I saw my list of courses. So you can use those hyperlinks at the top to go back and forth from one assignment to another or whatever. Also under navigation, if you have more than one course, you can jump to other courses and different portions of a course. So in this particular course, it has every week. I think these dates are wrong because I started. Well, I set this up on the 24th, and so it's doing every week since then. So it's not quite correct. I may have to go back and change that, but you get the idea. So I can go to any week of this course, or I can see the rest. I can hit this My Course and see the rest of my courses, and go to any week of any of my other courses. So over here on the left, you can jump around to different sites as well. So the links at the top, these links on the left under navigation are the easiest ways to move around. Any questions on this? Oops, excuse me. Oh, well, the only time I gave this 2 weeks, so I gave this one, I think, until I think it's the 11th of November or something, because you guys should do it. Like I said, I will go ahead and update and add some more questions today. So I would suggest, while it's fresh in your mind, that tomorrow or Monday you do it, you get it done. But you have until I think the 11th of September, I meant to say, to do it. So typically I'll go ahead and give 2 weeks to get it done, but it's in everybody's best interest to get it done sooner than later because it's something we'll be going on to a new subject next Saturday. So you would want to do it sometime during the week. But no, it doesn't have a real short. And as far as how long you can take to do the quiz, I didn't put a timer on it. I have that capability in the system to say you have 10 minutes to do it. But at least for now, I'm not going to do that. So you can have it open for an hour or 2 hours if you want to, which for 3 questions, or even 10 questions, I don't think will be necessary. But so there's not a strict time limit on this one. I might put a time limit in some of the other ones. To the time limit, the only point of a time limit would probably be so that you don't look up all the answers. But in this one, I don't care if you look up the answers. I want you to know, I'm giving this as incentive for mostly the people who are not here to get into the syllabus and to get into to understand Moodle and learn everything you guys learned today, so that I don't have to repeat it next week for them. So I'll be sending them an email and asking them to please watch the videos and answer the quiz. Okay, any other questions? Well, I think we are out of time, so we'll go ahead and, more than out of time, so we'll go ahead and call that a day. If you have any questions, I'll be here for a few minutes, and so you can stay after. But otherwise, I'll see you next Saturday. I will probably send out an email as soon as I'm done expanding the quiz. I'll send an email out to everybody so that you know it's done, but also the people who are not here will understand they need to go watch these videos and do the quiz. Okay, thank you.